Welcome to Subramani. Recently somebody said, Subra, I want to come and talk to you about equity markets. I want to understand from you the history and how the market has evolved and what happened. So I said, which Subra do you want to talk to? The Subra who thought that the market was a longish bear market. Occasionally it had a bull run, or a market which is fully a bull run, which occasionally has bear dips of 2 months or 3 months. So which Subra do you want to talk to? So let me explain what I am saying. Is there something for us to learn from history? Answer is yes, of course there is something for us to learn from history. Is history a great indicator of what happened in the past? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that yes, of course all this happened, but since we know the ending and we know what is the so-called a happy ending as we are today in 2024, we know and we can read and learn history very calmly. But having lived through history is different and reading history is different. So let me just, if you go to sensexindia.in or something like that, you will find the data of how the Sensex has moved over long periods of time, right? From 1979 till today, how the Sensex has moved. So I'm going to talk to you about that. So in case you want to see that on a side with laptop or something like that, it could be quite useful. So how we look at data depends on how optimistic or pessimistic we are. So if you are in 2024 and you look at historical data of India from 2014 to 2024, you can look at it from the BJP point of view and say all these positive things have happened, or you can look at it from the Congress point of view and say so much could have happened and this didn't happen and that didn't happen, right? So it's a question of what point of view you want. I'm not making this video political, so I'm not getting too much into why parties do that. If you're in the opposition, it's your job to criticize. If you're in the ruling party, it is your job to say we have done a great job. And so you can take data and twist it and turn it as you wish, and you also can keep on talking about it and communicate it in that way. For example, the scam, Harshad Mehta scam, there are at least 5 versions, 5 people and 5 versions I can get you on that, what happened and why it happened and why it ended, all that, right? So it's a question of same history, but the question of how you look at it, right? So is it difficult to learn from history? Now I'll have to quote somebody called Liddell Hart, and he said history cannot be interpreted without the aid of imagination and intuition, which is true. You have to go back in time mentally, physically. I mean, physically you can't, mentally you go back to those times and think like that. Why? And you think in 1960 it was okay for people to take dowry. In 1980 also it was okay for people to take dowry. But today you think taking dowry is wrong. The mindset has to change, right? It's not just the question of legislation changing. So you have to go back and then say, oh, my grandfather took dowry, my father took dowry, right? All those things, right, wrong, you can judge, but you can say what Nehru did was wrong, what Gandhi did was wrong, what the British did to India was wrong, right? So all those things you can go back and judge history, but it will definitely require the aid of imagination. Right, the sheer quantity of evidence is so overwhelming that selection is inevitable, which is true, because you can pick up data and say, oh, there was this guy who let's say betrayed Indians and sided with the British. But you can also look at it this way, saying the Mughal rulers were so terrible that many of the Hindus were happy that the British came. They did not see themselves as Jaichand. Jaichand himself is a person that you can talk about and wonder whether what he did was right or wrong, because if you have been oppressed by one community or one king, then you don't mind aiding with somebody else to overthrow this guy, and later on history will judge you saying, oh, you shouldn't have done this to the Mughals. But as far as the Hindu subject was concerned, the Mughal was also an invader and he was perhaps treating him more badly, and when the British came, these people were perhaps happy. It's very difficult to go back in history and judge these things, right? So those who read history, this is nice, those who read history tend to look for what proves them right and confirms their personal opinions. They defend loyalties, they read with a purpose to affirm or to attack. they resist inconvenient truth, since everyone wants to be on the side of the angels, just as the Star Wars to end all wars, right? I mean, just as we start wars to end all wars, but we never learn from history that wars don't really end wars. It's just beginning of another war. So stocks are anything that you want. I can get you data to say, well, this happened in Japan, this happened in Australia, this happened in UK, this happened in France. There is enough evidence for everything. In fact, there is a nice book called Investment Fables by Ashwath Damodaran. It's a nice book to read, because everything, there is some story which contradicts. Like I can tell you, if you do an SIP for 7 years in an equity fund, you will not lose money. Maybe it is true in India, but it was not true in Japan for 30 years. Right? So for every story that you learn from history, you can also learn something good or something bad from history. It is very difficult to learn everything from history correctly as it happened, because there is no correct version of history. It is a version of history that is data, and based on data, how much you can you learn. So let us look at the returns that you got on the Sensex. This is just the Sensex. This is not the TRI. This is the simple Sensex. What returns you got? Now, if you were a fixed deposit holder, and I'm assuming for a minute the Sensex started in 79, it didn't, it actually started in 85 with effect from 79, but let us look at it this way. If you were young and you were to invest money in equities in 1978 or 79, these were the returns that you got: 24.83, 53.61, 3.56, 7.25, 7.48, 93.08 in 1985. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years of positive returns, the worst being 3.56 and the best being 93.98. 93.98 means in 1 year your money doubled. Would you even believe it? The answer is wow. That's the fantastic return that you got. And if you entered then, you had a problem, because next 2 years were minus 0.55 and minus 15.69. So somebody who entered then as a one-time investor lost money. But then after that, it was followed by another nice bull run which gave 51%, 17%, 34% and 82%, and followed by 37%, right? So 37%, then 28%, then 17% in 1994. So that was again a bull run which was fantastic, and that was a time when you had to be in direct equities. The mutual funds didn't really matter till 93, 94. They were not in a big way. There was UTI, but apart from that, some PSU banks had just started. The private sector mutual funds had just started. So SIP etc. was not available, but that was of course followed by a minus 20% and a minus 1%. So again you would have got hurt, some money you would have lost, but yes, 2 years of negative return, which was followed by 18.6% return, followed by 16.5% negative, right? So here you may have created wealth, then you may have lost it, you may have lost it. So the market did a yo-yo kind of a thing. And if I tell you that the average return there was 12% or 13%, none of these numbers look like 12 or 13. So you see 3.56 positive, you see 93% positive, you see minus 20%, minus 5%. All the numbers are nowhere near the average of 12%, right? So after that, in 1999, you got 63% return, which was followed by minus 20 and minus 18. Now, when you get such returns, you get scared, you don't see great wealth being created, you have no SIPs going, so you are now worried because you are a one-time investor in the equities, right? So all this would have hurt you. But after that 18% in 2001, it was followed by, now look at the mind-boggling returns people would have got. 3.5%, 73%, 13%. Now pause a bit. After getting 3 years of positive return, what you would have learned from history is, in the Indian markets, after 3 years you can't get a positive return. This is a great time to sell. But what happened after those 3 years? You got after 3 years of which included a 72% return, you got 42%, 46% and 47%. Whoever in his right mind would have believed that such a bull run can never end? But that bull run ended with a minus 52% in 2008. Of course 2008 there was this financial crisis, etc. But look at it this way, even though it fell 52%, next year it recovered at 81%. Now those people who have come in 2005, 2006 think that even if the market is bearish, it will be bearish only for 1 year, because they have not seen a longish fall after that. So that after that you saw 81%, 12% and a minus 24%, which was in 2011, right? So 24%, yes, bad year, but after an 82% and a 17%, you don't mind a 24%. Again, after that, you saw 25.7, 8.9 and 29.8. Again 3 years of fantastic returns followed by 5% negative return, which again doesn't hurt because the markets have been good and one negative does not hit. And then in 2017 started a magnificent bull run where you got 27, 6, 15, 15, 22, 4.44, 18 and current year is 17, which means you have got 8 years of positive returns where people have made a lot of money. So if you have been in the market for the last 8 years, you think the market cannot go down. That's the problem. And even if you have been in the market for 15 years or 20 years, you think, oh, market can go down for 1 year, right? So, okay, it may see a 50% fall, but so what? It will recover. So, during this period when the market is down, I should be investing, right? So, that is what you think, because even the year, if you see, we were at 21%, even in the year 2020, we closed at 15-16%, which is the COVID year. You still closed positive, right? So the learning is, even if the markets are bad, it will be bad for 2-3 months. In that time, you put more money, your money will grow. Now, cut all this crap and come down to what happens if the market remains negative for the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 years. Right, or rather 3 continuous years which are minus 12, minus 14 and minus 42, right? If these are the 3 years returns, next 3 years, then what happens? How prepared are we? Is there something to learn from history saying such a thing can't happen because we have only 2 bad years and it will always be followed by a positive year? No, that's not the learning. That's the learning is to understand that you can't predict markets. That is the most important learning. Thank you.